What is good, guys? Welcome back to the Benefit Podcast, bringing you everything you need to know about living your best life. Now, what I'm going to get into in this episode is something that you may well have heard of, you may well even have tried, and you might well have found yourself getting a little bit frustrated with, I'm going to say, the lack of results. Now, what I'm going to talk about is body recompositioning, which has become, in my opinion, it's become this little bit of a sort of buzzword in the fitness industry. Now, what most people think about when they hear the term body recomposition, and what most coaches will try and sell people, is essentially they're trying to sell this little bit of a dream scenario where you can both gain muscle and lose fat at the same time, at the same rate. And generally speaking, it's then spoken about as your body weight is basically going to stay the same. You're able to eat at maintenance, or even people suggest that you're able to eat in a slight surplus. And the rate of fat that you lose in terms of the amount of fat, the quantity, the weight of fat that disappears is going to be exactly equal to the amount of muscle that you're going to gain. And it sounds incredible, right? When someone says, oh, you can lose 10 pounds of fat and gain 10 pounds of muscle in 10 weeks. Sounds like the absolute dream scenario. And why wouldn't you buy into that? Why wouldn't you pay that person money for their coaching, for their plans? The big issue with it is that very, very often it just doesn't happen that way. Going back to like real basics here, fat loss will happen at a much faster rate than muscle growth will. To grow muscle is really bloody difficult. It's easier if you're completely untrained and you've never stepped foot in a gym before and everything's very new to you. Your body's going to be very sensitive to it, and you can gain a decent amount of muscle in a relatively short space of time. But you are always going to lose fat much faster. So when people get this idea in their heads that, they're recomping, they're going through this body recomposition phase, they can also get quite fixated on the number on the scales, because it's like, well, if they see that number on the scales going up, automatically they think things are going wrong. If they see it going down, automatically they think things are going wrong, because what they've been told or sold is that your body weight's going to remain the same. We're going to lose the exact amount of body fat in the equivalent amount of muscle is going to go on. So you end up in this, a lot of people end up in a real limbo. They don't really go in either direction very quickly, because they're so fixated on not letting the number on the scales go down that they're not losing body fat, and they're so fixated on not letting the number on the scales go up that they're not gaining much muscle either. And you end up in this scenario where people just effectively get a bit stuck for long periods of time. You might see a little bit of change happen. There might be a bit of visual change going on, but it's going to take a lot longer than if you just focused on one of those things and then the other. And generally speaking, you do want to be focused on fat loss first. For the vast majority of people, I've spoken about this on a recent podcast, most people need to lose fat first, because if you're carrying excess body fat, the second that you start thinking about going into a bulk, a phase of growth, a surplus, whatever you want to term it, you are going to add body fat along the way. And if you're already carrying too much, adding more is definitely not going to get you where you want to be. So going into that fat loss phase is going to help. But for me, it's this whole concept and idea around recompositioning that people get really lost, because let's just, again, like take that word in and of itself, like carrying out a body composition change. If you lose body fat, your composition's changing, right? There's less body fat on you. So proportionally, there's more muscle tissue. That's a recomposition. I think, like I say, for a lot of people, it's become this bit of a buzzword. It's become this thing that a lot of, I see a lot of coaches try and sell like programs and plans under the heading that this is a recomposition plan. And unfortunately for a lot of clients or people that buy into those things, they do end up stuck, and you can end up stuck for a long time because you can convince yourself that, well, it must be working because my body weight isn't really changing. And that's the mentality that goes in. But if your body weight isn't really changing, all that really means is you're not moving in either direction very fast at all. So if you are, in the process yourself at the moment of like believing that you're in this recomposition phase, just assess how long you've been in it, assess like actually what has changed compositionally. Because if you've been following this approach for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and not a huge amount's gone on, it's not the right approach for you. You'd be far, far, far better off. Focus on fat loss, get a really good, like fat loss happens quickly. You can get a big amount of fat off in 10, 12, 15 weeks. You then, once you're lean, allow plenty of time for growth to happen. And like I said, I've spoken about this time and time again on various different episodes in the past. I don't want to go over it too deeply because there's lots of in-depth stuff that I've mentioned. But for this particular one, just if you are thinking or following a plan that has been sold to you or designed or whatever under the heading of it being a body recomposition plan, think about how long you've been following it for. Think about whether you're actually seeing changes happen. And if you've been following it for a long time and changes haven't happened, chances are it's not working. So, the approach needs reassessing. I hope that helps. Like the last thing I want people to do is just blindly follow these things for weeks, months, years on end, potentially paying out money to follow these things as well, when it's just not taking them anywhere, because it's really frustrating for you. And it just, just doesn't need to happen. So I hope that helps and I hope that makes sense. But any questions on that, any questions on, like the body recomposition process or, what you should be focused on, my inbox is always open at Ben Howard Fitness on all my socials. ben@benhowardfitness.com is the email address. Let me know, pop me a message. I'm always open and happy to have conversations about this stuff. I can look at your visuals, I can see what's going on, we can chat about what you've been doing and, really just make sure that you are finally pushing yourself in the right direction and not feeling like you're wasting your time. Hope that all makes sense. I will be back very, very soon with another one. Have an absolutely fantastic weekend and I'll speak to you soon. Cheers, guys.